fun apple facts sheet. We have the word apple, which is just kind of fun. We can fill in. And then I've got an apple that we can paint, and I've got a section of an apple and an apple tree branch. So we're gonna have a little fun with this one. We warmed up with the different varieties, so now we're gonna have a little fun, okay? So I think we will work on the apple branch first with a dark green. So I'm gonna grab some dark green. I'm gonna start working on all of these little leaves. At the end, if you would like to get the splatter, I will show you how to do that. But for now, we're just gonna go ahead and start working on each little leaf, adding some green. Okay, so now that I have painted all those leaves, I'm gonna let that dry. And I'm gonna grab a Sharpie and work on my wording apple. You do not have to use a Sharpie. I'm just going to use a Sharpie so that it fills in and can stand out. You could do it whatever color you wanted to, or whatever way you want to. Maybe you wanna just like paint over the entire word with watercolor, which would be cool too. Maybe I'll try that. So now I have shaded in the word apple, and let's see, I think this is still drying, so I'm going to move on to these apples. So we're going to do a gradation apple, which is moving from one color to another. That's a gradient. So I'm going to move from red to green, and we're going to try to not get it too mixed up, making only brown, but that's okay if it does. Okay, so grab a small to medium brush again, if I can find it. There it is. I'm going to start with some red. I'm going to start on the left. Okay. So I have fun working with these really bold fall colors. So our red, we want to flow into a golden yellow. So go ahead and let that try to go. Rinse out my brush, grab some yellow, some golden yellow, and right up to that red. Rinse out the brush, grab just some water. Start loosening that up a little. Some nice color mixing there. Grab a little more water, go along the edge. Loosen it up more. All right. Rinse that brush out. Grab a little light green, which is going to be a dot of green and yellow for me. Go to this edge, drop in that green, rinse out my brush, go to the green, add water. And then just let it mix. That's pretty cool. Little way to do a gradation apple. Go ahead and add a little brown stem. So it's a dark red, dark red stem. Now I'm going to go to the section of the apple, which would be where the apple's cut in half. I start by outlining the apple with red. Red, and then back here I'm going to add some red too. It just shows the back of the apple, the back half. Let's see, the next thing we should do is very carefully grab a little bit more red, hop back up to this branch, check that it's like fairly dry. Let's go ahead and add red to the apples. I like to work on multiple things while I'm painting. I don't know if you can tell, but I jump around a lot from thing to thing because a lot of painting is waiting for paint to dry. All right, got these guys pretty red, and then also going to go in add a nice quick brown branch. It's a pretty dark brown, but that's okay. It's bleeding a little bit because it's still a little wet, and that's also okay. All right, we'll add a little more tan to that color. I'm turning my paper because I don't want to put my hand right on these wet apples. Okay, so add some branch color. All right. So the next step going to be painting the inside of the apple. I'm just going to go ahead and paint this whole thing like fairly yellow. It wouldn't really be fully yellow, so we'll add a little bit of other color, but we can start with it being mostly yellow. All right, and now I'm going to add just the tiniest bit of green over that yellow. I haven't really touched the edge of the red yet because it's going to mix as soon as I do. So I'm just going to kind of do something like that. I'm going to rinse out my brush. I'm just going to add some water slowly at this edge and just let it do what it does. If your brush is getting too messy, go ahead and rinse it out again. Add a little more water. I like how it mixes. The mixing is cool. Okay. Something like that. That's cool. I like that. Okay. Now let's add this stem here. I'm gonna go back to this reddish brown up here. Add a little stem. Let this guy dry. Actually, can darken this a little tiny bit around to let that guy dry. Now, if you like your picture and you're almost done, we still have to do the center here, but if you like the way your branch is, that's totally fine. If you want to mess around with the technique of making your apple branch bleed a little bit, I'm going to show you how to do that. So it's really just adding water and not being afraid of what happens. I'm just going to start adding water over it. I'm going to just pull the color off of it. And you can even, for fun, drop a little more color back into it. So this is just a fun artistic thing. Totally not necessary. But if you like to mess around a little bit with your painting, try something different. Give it some fun vibes. There we go. So I'm doing this kind of, I'm doing this sort of messy bleeding of my green, but I also kind of want to give the impression that it's a tree still. So that's why I'm kind of doing a little bit of a tree shape on the edge. So there you go. That's looking good. Let's look back at these apples while this is drying. These look pretty good. All right. So the last thing that we need to do is to add the core and the seeds. So I'm going to very carefully add a light green, light green yellow. I'm just going to go down the center with a little line. If yours is still too wet, worry about this step later. And I'm just going to go around the seeds and connect. And this is going to create the core. Last step will be to add some seeds. So I'm just going to drop the tiniest bit of color in here so that it doesn't bleed with my other stuff. Okay, and it's good. I like how these turned out. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about these different varieties of apples and paintings of apples. I think this was pretty fun, and I will see you next time. Make sure to like and subscribe this video, and I'll be back for more. If you have an idea for a video or would like to see me paint something, you can always have your parent email me, and I'll be happy to do that. So happy fall, everyone, and happy September. Thanks so much for joining.